welcome back to Call Me By Your Game. This is your host, Connor McCabe, to bring you the podcast where I sit down with someone and discuss a meaningful video game from a particular moment in their life with them. We get into not only what made the video game memorable and special, we also dive into the context of the time and place when the game hit them for that memorable time. It's a podcast about what makes video games special to different people. Just right before I started the intro, I remembered that I like when I'll listen to my show back to like make sure there's no errors, I've thought, what if I really went hard NPR intro? And that pretty much feels like it qualifies. So good job to me. Before we get into today's episode, a little bit of housekeeping I would like to start with is that anything that my guest or I plug on the show, whether it be another podcast or a link to Patreon or what have you, if you go to the show notes of wherever you're listening, whether that's on your favorite podcast catcher, on Apple or Spotify, or even watching and listening to this on YouTube, if you scroll down in the show notes, you're going to find some gorgeous links that I've organized for you. So if you're like, wow, Connor, I heard you guys talk about the Super NPC Radio Patreon, where you have bonus podcasts that come out every single week for your patrons at certain tiers, I'd love to check out and find one that's right for me. There's a link in the show notes for you as well. And if you're like, Connor, I got to participate in the Games Club election that is going on as this episode releases and that will close Friday, March 21st at 12 p.m. Pacific. So if you're listening to this afterwards, don't worry about it. If you want to go and make your voice heard, that's a big perk that's available to anyone at $1 and up at our Mailroom Toad tier. So if you want to influence what we play for a month, hop in there. You can even hop out or just like indulge on all the bonuses that are at that $1 tier for the time. But yeah, we have basically you can help us influence what we're going to play for the next quarter for Q2 in 2025. The theme is sequels, Games Club sequels rather. So we have nominated 5 titles that are all follow-ups to series that we have covered in this format. The nominees are Mass Effect 2, Pokemon Generation 2, that's Gold, Silver, and Crystal, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Sonic Adventure 2, and Super Mario Sunshine. Get out there, make your voice heard. And this is a bit of news, which will have come out by the time, but because of some news we got about a release date for a game by a little person named Mr. Hideo Kojima, I can already tell you for quarter 3, whatever game is the runner-up this quarter, whatever finishes in second place, automatically is getting moved on to the quarter 3 one-on-one election going up against Death Stranding 2. So I would say just vote with your heart, because if Resident Evil 4 Remake finishes second, it's not gone. It's going back. It's coming back, folks. It's what would you call that when someone loses an election and runs again?
Well, it just knocks it down to the losers bracket. That's all it does.
So what I'm saying is second place goes to the losers bracket, where we're going to break from tradition and just have a one-on-one election for Q3. It's enough about the election. You can find a link to our Patreon in the show notes. Go check it out. Consider supporting us, even at the free tier, where we have the occasional bonus, including a link to our Discord. Without further ado, I'll finally introduce my guest who you've been hearing, and because of the way I do my video now, I've even thrown him up there, and now I've thrown him away, but he's going to come back. It is none other than, here we go, author of the TMNT sourcebook, and co-host of the Nintendo Cartridge Society podcast, Patrick Ehlers. Welcome back, pal.
Connor, thank you so much for having me back. I didn't want to interrupt before, but, rock the vote, vote or die,
Hey.
Vote like you mean it, all that stuff.
Yes.
Have your voice heard. It's so rarely heard.
I've even been, I've done the research. There's been despite what many people have said, there's no credible evidence of voter fraud that has happened in the last few elections. So we're in a good spot here. And I'm glad you interrupted. It's fun to hear the guests before they've been introduced. I like that.
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's so I've been listening to the free feed of the Games Club,
yes,
as it's been coming out, and so I just heard the episode of the Sonic Adventure Games Club where the voting was tied for the next one that was coming out, and so the hosts had to submit their votes.
Yes, we had to break a tie.
You had to break a tie, and I'm not saying there was some chicanery, but Jeremy was definitely like commentating on it as it was happening, which drove the voting in the direction it was probably always going to go.
I forgot about that because I listened to that episode too this week, and it was fun because it was kind of a momentous occasion, but also I forgot how much Jeremy was right and thought he knew what was going to happen, but kind of did maybe some steering. It's hard to say.
Maybe he steered it a little bit.
Speaking of which, Patrick, I have a relic from that episode. I kept the sticky note where I tallied the votes. So for the video viewers on YouTube,
I love
literally, here it is. You
Wow.
can see RE2 Remake had all 7 votes. Control lost, which is coincidentally a game
That
that
you're
was
playing now,
resurrected.
right?
In the runners-up election, we just did a whole Games Club series on it on Patreon. But yeah, Patrick, welcome back, pal. I mean, you've been on the show since in the both the co-op variety and to list your top 10 favorite games of all time with Drew Mackey and Mark Mitchell. But this is your first returning solo episode. Something I try to do, every month or every couple months, I try to bring an old favorite back.
And you took a while to even start doing them, right?
Longer, and I think I did take a while to do that. But a strange thing is I started threatening to do that as like soon as I started the podcast. It just took a long time. So I'm slowly getting people back. It helps me not to have to ask a completely new person every single week. And turns out people like ourselves have more than one special experience of the video game that they have to discuss, like you today.
Yes, true. Very true.
Speaking of which, you originally came on the podcast way back in 2020. The show is not even a year old. You came on to discuss Dead Rising. And if people go back and listen to that episode, they'll know that that was our first time having a conversation.
First time we had a conversation, yes.
Doing a podcast together. I had extended an invite to you, crossing my little fingies on both hands. You said yes, and that was it's not, I don't want that to be a lesson to listeners out there that you can reach out to anyone of your favorite podcasters and that they're going to and not only entertain you and your idea, but that you're going to become friends. But that's exactly what we did, pal.
That's exactly what happened.
I weaseled my way into your life is what I did.
You weaseled your way right in there, and I weaseled my way right back. I mean, like, we have weaseled our lives together for sure.
We sure have.
Here's the thing. Most times that people have reached out to me, like through the Nintendo Cartridge Society email and asked me to be on a podcast, most times I've said yes. So
huge.
like,
good company.
It's that is a good way to get in touch with, like, especially people doing podcasts at like the level that we do, which is, we're not super famous or big or anything, but like, I think we like to be on other shows. I think we like being exposed to other audiences and stuff like that. So, I didn't know at the time, and I don't expect that next time I will be like making a new, very good friend. But that sure is how it wound up with us.
Yeah, I guess I got lucky that we were just a match as buds. And
Yes.
I don't really remember the exact steps we took from that first very fun interaction and episode that we did. I remember really having a good time.
Yeah.
Because I always liked you as a listener listening to your show, but
Right.
after doing that, it was one of those moments where I was like, I could be friends with that guy. And I know that you and Mark both came on the Zelda Games Club the next year, but I can't tell you at the beginning how much we were keeping in touch, if at all.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're on like a regular texting relationship at that point.
Yes.
But then I remember I came to your house to do like the E3 reaction 2021.
Yes.
And that was one of my like first in-person like hangs with people, period.
Yes.
Right. Because we were just coming out of like, the COVID lockdown time. And so it was just like rad to see people at all. And it was, that it was for me with like people that were all new to me.
That's right.
And I was just like, oh yeah, the world is still out there. I can still make friends.
Yeah.
And like that was awesome. So, I don't know. I think shortly after that, then we started like texting kind of on the reg, and now like we'll obviously like go to each other's like parties and stuff like that. But
Yes.
now we just also meet up and have tacos.
Look at us. We've
Beautiful
spanned
stuff.
the full breadth of a friendship. There's
That's
no
right.
farther we could go, Patrick. This is, in fact, I hope this is where we cut it off as far as like,
Yep.
let's stay within these bounds. No, it's
Not any
been,
more serious than this.
no, which is like, where does that lead us? All that being said is that I've been so grateful to, have such a wonderful friendship with you and like many things that we have in common and interests that overlap for us, but it's fun when I have returning guests like I was previewing before the episode before we recorded. It's been fun to have people back who I've like built a friendship with. So thanks for being brave and doing this in the first place and here
Yeah.
we are.
I mean, Connor, you make it so easy to come into this space. And I know that, like a lot of the mission statement of this show is like, hey, be vulnerable about this piece of video game ephemera. And so, like, you create a space that is like very opening and welcoming for that. And, it just turns out that that is a good quality in a human being.
Hey, I'll take it. That's all I really needed to get on the show today.
Affirmation, that's all.
Truly, that's it. That's a better peek into the window of like how our friendship has developed since you first came on up until this point. But Patrick, while you're here, before we get into more video game specific stuff, what do you want to plug while you're here? Is there anything you want the listener to go find and support you at?
Yeah, so we've mentioned the Nintendo Cartridge Society podcast a couple times. At the when this episode releases, we're what, March 19th right now?
We're looking at March 19th.
Okay, great. You can head on over and subscribe to the Nintendo Cartridge Society because we are barreling towards a Nintendo Switch 2 reveal direct that's going to be happening shortly, and that's the most exciting time of the year for us on NCS. Nothing we love more than breaking down a presentation and really getting into like the nuts and bolts of everything that's been revealed there. Very, very excited. I feel like the show's been good, but it feels like we've been like treading water a little bit, right?
Sure.
And like kind of like swimming in safer areas. But like, we've got something new to talk about. And I'm so stoked for that.
I can't wait. Even just listening to the second part of the ABCs of Nintendo console launches today. Which was a Thursday, a topical episode, listener,
That's right.
of this bi-weekly show. It got me excited just to hear you all. I feel like every episode you're like, we are this many days from the direct. So I couldn't be more thrilled that it's almost here.
Well, and I say that we are however many days until the direct because we are soliciting listener predictions for what's going to happen.
That's right.
During the direct, what you think is going to happen, what you're afraid is going to happen, and what you hope will happen. So if listeners of this show have any of those predictions, please email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. Thank you, Connor. No later than March 26th at noon, and we will include those predictions in our episode just before the direct. We're not doing predictions of our own. Now we are just reviewing other people's predictions.
The safest kind of prediction to do is just reading off other people's. I love it.
Here's the thing. How many Nintendo Direct predictions episodes have we done over the course of the show? Like 100? It seems like 100.
True. Well, listener, if you got predictions, if you got excitements, write them in there.
Yeah. But yeah, otherwise, check out the podcast, Nintendo Cartridge Society, wherever you get your podcasts. Twice a week, one news episode, one topic episode that gets to be a little bit more fun, sometimes kind of goofy, sometimes, like a list or ranking or something like that. And then we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, where we put out one deep dive, like long form episode a month as like a little bit of a bonus. We're doing a series that we're calling NCS Arcade, where Mark and I pick a game, usually a game that we've never beaten before, and just play it all the way through and talk about it, and dig into how those games hold up in the modern era to these two modern men. It's a great fun, good time. So check that out if you are interested.
I'm excited for the Donkey Kong 94 episode, which I
Donkey Kong
heard
94, very
was a lot of
exciting. Yes.
fire. Um,
Uh, and then, of course, Connor, if I can just plug one more thing.
I would love if you did.
So you mentioned that I am the author of the TMNT source book, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle source book, IDW's official source book / encyclopedia of everything that has happened in the 14-year run of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which just relaunched, by the way, like mid last year, with Jason Aaron as the writer of the series. But for 13 and a half years before. Had this incredible run, and I wrote the book on it, the collected version of it, which is this very handsome volume right here that I'm holding and showing off on the video.
Audio listeners, you're missing out. The visuals
You're missing out,
beautiful.
audio listeners. It's 400 pages of like pieces about every character, every location, every magical object, every story beat in over 300 issues of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it's written by me, and it's full of like weird little jokes and observations and character voices and stuff like that. I'm really proud of it. And it's collected now. You can buy it literally wherever you buy books. So like if you don't have like a local bookseller near you, or like a small bookseller, which I would prefer that you buy from, or a small comic book store, you can always go to Walmart or Target or not Best Buy, Amazon. It's everywhere. So check it out if you like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it's full of art from the series, which has like a murderer's row, some of the best comic book artists in the world throughout history. And it's just it's a really fun book, and I'm really proud of it.
It's so fantastic. I'll leave a link to probably the like official website for the book so that people can then find it through their local store if possible. But and I'll put a link to to NCS and the Patreon. We're looking at 3 gorgeous links for you, Patrick. How about that?
Ooh, those links, they're so gorgeous. Ooh, they're supple.
Oh, a beautiful, attractive. They're great.
Yeah, I don't care if it makes me look like a link guy. I love my curvy links.
Hey, you know what? You are a link guy. And that makes, I don't know, I'm a Kirby guy, whatever. Patrick,
Yes.
we're about to get into some of your recent history with video games. Since you were first on the show, before we do, will you please introduce what you've brought on for the main event later and call me by your game?
I am bringing on and calling you, Connor, Battletoads, the 1991 NES classic developed by Rare.
Gorgeous. Love the confidence about the classic portion of that. Can't wait to discuss that for the main event later. I know I've known for a while that this is a game that has had a place in your little heart. But we'll save that for after the break. Patrick, since you first came on the show back in October of 2021, you've played a lot of video games. I've heard
October
you play
2020.
October. Oh my gosh. See, how did I do that? I corrected you earlier.
I know.
You know what?
That's the only reason I knew to correct you now.
How silly. October 2020, again, within the first year of the show. I would love to get into your recent history with gaming. Specifically, I want to ask you if this is sort of a bit of an opaque question, so forgive me. Have you seen any noticeable trends in your video game habits since that time, whether it be where you play, the amount you play, the genres you play?
Yeah, great questions. I don't think much has changed really in that time. Like I play games mostly on my Switch, and then sort of the PlayStation 5 is like a backup. I guess one of the like genres of games that I was not at all into before, but have gone like pretty hard into now is walking games on my phone.
Oh yes.
It's this the last time I was on was before Pikmin Bloom, which now like I don't go for a walk or a run or even like go down the street to like pick something up from the store without like checking in on Pikmin Bloom and making sure I'm planting whatever flowers I need to, or I've responded to a mushroom fighting request, or whatever. or that I've like grown the Pikmin that I need to grow. Like it is something that like occupies sort of an alarming part of my brain, and that I do literally every day.
I am so glad that you brought this up because I don't think, you talk about your experience with this occasionally on NCS, and so does
Hmm.
Mark, but I almost never bring it up, and it has really infected my brain since we started using it.
Totally.
It's almost been 2 years, I think.
Yeah, because it was like the beginning of 2023 that we started playing. Because I remember you were talking about it when Yumi and Jeremy did an episode, Video Games Comedy Show, about Fire Emblem Engage.
Oh my, well, now that's a throwback.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 years ago, but it feels
2 years
like
ago, right?
I
It
forgot I
does. It
played
feels
that
like a
whole game.
lifetime ago, right?
Yes.
What a great game! Also, by the way, like just shout out to Fire Emblem Engage. It doesn't get nearly the like accolades that Three Houses got, but like
Oh
it
yeah.
rules. That game's
It
so fun.
it really came and went, but
Hmm.
yeah, I mean we were just talking about Pikmin Bloom. I do the same thing, and can I tell you, even though we're talking about your recent history with gaming,
Yeah.
an update for me on Pikmin Bloom.
Oh, please.
I don't know if this came up, but for Christmas, my big Christmas present was a Fitbit. So I have this Fitbit.
A
I
Fitbit.
guess you can see it there. A
Yeah.
Fitbit, my lord. It's an Inspire 3 is the model. It's not like the
Okay.
highest range of Fitbit, but it's a pretty good one. This has changed not only this has added another level, Patrick, to my like step addiction. And
Whoa.
and also it more accurately counts my steps than me being sure to pick up my phone every time I walked
Right.
to the bathroom or not.
Right.
So not like my step count has gone way up, and it's only because it's more well, it's twofold because it's counting them more, and because it's motivated me to walk even more because I can just look at this wrist, flip it
Yeah.
over like that. It tells me how many steps I have, and I go.
Wow, I mean that's awesome. I should get a Fitbit. I often think that the step counter in my phone is undercounting my steps, because
Might be.
I will go out with, Sarah or anyone else, and I know I'm a tall man, so I've got a longer stride, but like, if we go to like Disneyland, right, and we're like walking around all day, she'll clock like 4,000 more steps than me. And I'm like, how is that possible?
Yeah, even over a day with a shorter stride, that seems way
It seems
off.
crazy, right?
Oh,
So yeah, maybe I do need something more accurately counting. I like to think it's because I walk so smoothly that I just glide across the surface of the earth, and it's like, you're not walking, you must be on a bike or something.
your phone can't even detect your
Can't even
your
detect.
precious lack of footsteps on
That's
this
right.
earth.
That's right.
So
That's
maybe
my
the
working
Fitbit
theory
wouldn't
right now.
help you.
Well, yeah.
If you do end up getting one, Patrick, there's a little workaround you have to do for your Fitbit app to communicate with your phone in Pikmin Bloom, but I can help you with
Okay.
that
Okay, great.
because
Thank you.
I almost returned mine because I didn't think it was possible, and then there's a third party. Anyway, Pikmin
Okay,
Bloom.
great.
So what a wonderful little way for us to connect, not with just with each other, but like a whole community over on your Discord.
Yes, that's one of the like most active parts of our Discord is the Pikmin Bloom section, where people are partying up for the like team-based missions, either steps or planting flowers. What a great thing to like look forward to every week, and just be like, am I going to be part of it this week? Or am I like starting my own little splinter group this week? Do we have enough people for that? And then also just knowing that when I invite a bunch of people to fight a mushroom with me, that those are people that I'm going to be chatting with later, on Discord. It all just feels like very connected and good.
It really does. I love it. I love that we've even recently had like a character arc in the Pikmin Bloom channel of like Kyle getting over his injury and is like now out walking again and
He's walking again. Yes.
reclaiming his throne, which I had for a bit, but it's gone, Patrick.
No, Kyle walks. You can't do anything about it. Like
It's true.
he just walks so much.
Yes.
But so like obviously I've loved getting into Pikmin Bloom, and Pikmin Bloom ended up being the thing that opened the door for me to let Pikmin 4 into my heart when it came out at the end of 2023. And that like blew the lid off of Pikmin as a franchise for me. And now, I was not a Pikmin fan really before Pikmin 4, and now I'm like, I still have to play 3, but like I finished Pikmin 4. I put it on. It's one of my top 10 games that from the last time I was on the show.
Yeah.
Um, and then I went back and played 1 and 2. I still have to play 3, but they're all like fantastic games. I love them to pieces. Like Pikmin is now a like vital franchise for me.
I love it. It was such a fun journey that you've now been on for like, I don't know, started a year and a half ago when we both really loved that title, Pikmin 4, that
Oh, it's
is.
so good.
And I love that you're pilled. I
Hmm.
really also want to play 1 and 2 at some point. I've touched them.
Yeah, you have them. You have 1 and 2.
I don't own either, but I have played them in the past, like on other
Mm.
on like friends' consoles, honestly growing up.
Here's the thing. I would, obviously like Pikmin 1 and 2 have both been released so many different times and have so many different control schemes as a result, right? They're GameCube originally,
Yes.
and then re-released as new play control games on Wii, and then the new versions of them that came out now. I would recommend the versions of them that exist now
Okay.
because it has like some of the sort of quality of life, like snapping to targets in the same way that like Pikmin 4 does, instead of just like being like super loosey goosey and trying to control stuff, with a stick in like a real time strategy sort of
Yeah.
setting. Yeah,
That sounds very nice, and there's no need for me to spend even, gobs of money on
right.
GameCube versions that I don't need. So that's great. So you've been Pikmin pilled recently.
Yes.
What I before we, we're not gonna head to break at this moment, but before we do, I'd love to hit other highlights for you. Has there been I guess that would fall into the category of
Right.
somewhat unexpected, but
Right.
it could be expected. What other big things do you want to talk about?
Well, so when did the Famicom Detective Club remakes, did they come out after I was on your show?
I think since the last time you were on top 10 for sure.
Okay. Well, no, it was before. No, the remakes. I'm saying,
Oh,
not
the remakes
MEO.
on Switch.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I probably didn't talk about those last
I
time.
don't think you did.
But the Famicom Detective Club games, which were originally released on the Famicom Disk System, they're The Girl Who Stands Behind and The Forgotten Heir. Incredible, like visual novel mystery games where you play as a detective, but it's less about like finding clues and more about just like interviewing people. Has a very like Columbo sort of approach to mystery solving, where it's like you just need to be around these people for long enough,
Yes.
and then they tell you what happened. And so they remade the first 2 games for Switch and like totally remade them, and that like all the art is redone, all of the music is redone, and it's just a gorgeous package. They're still sort of archaic games in that like sometimes you do need the walkthrough in order to get through some of the more obtuse puzzles. But the when they when they released MEO the Smiling Man, a sequel to these 2 Famicom Detective Club games, like 35 years in the making or whatever, totally blew me away. Like that game is incredible. It's a much improved like version of the sort of like conversational investigation stuff. And then the story just goes to such bizarre and interesting and like psychologically complex places that it's just like a wholly surprising thing to come out of Nintendo, and really cool to see Yoshio Sakamoto get to have like such a clearly and confidently expressed story of his come out. Like the Switch has been like a little bit of a miracle system for him, right? Because he also got Metroid Dread to come out, and like those are both fascinating stories with like big twists to them that feel like earned and honest, and like yeah, I don't know. It's the Emil the Smiling Man is a game that feels like it was coming out amongst like other small releases and is itself a small release, but it feels seismic to me.
Yeah, your podcast, the conversations that you and Mark have about that series are my window into them because I've never touched them. So I, in my even my brain, like they're held with such reverence because the only people I know who've played them are, with the exception of a random Discord user here and there, uh, throughout all the Discords I'm on, are you two. And
Yeah.
now that I think about it, I think I might have to have you come back someday and list your top five favorite Nintendo designers, and just to see where Sakamoto falls up there, because I feel like Sakamoto
Oh,
is a
pretty
big one for
high.
you now.
Yeah. No, I love the Metroid series. And you know, if Famicom Detective Club is like the other data point, something I wouldn't have known just a couple years ago, but now I'm just like absolutely in love with. Yeah, he'd be up there.
Yes. Speaking of which, I mean, this is off topic, but I something that I you can tell that this is, I feel like, me confirming with you how busy I was today after I won't stop complaining about it, that I didn't list off all of the Call Me by Your Game episodes that you've been on.
Oh yeah,
Um,
great.
but let's see what
What
number.
comes up? Yeah.
Let's see. So episode 42 was
Hmm.
the first episode you were on where we discussed Dead Rising. I'm pretty sure everything else I'm going to be able to find on Patreon with a little, even though we had our Patreon back then.
Episode number 42. That's interesting. That's life, the universe, and everything. Right. That's from Hitchhiker's Guide, and is also the last of the four or six numbers from Lost is 42.
And we both went to a Dodgers game in 2023 where they gave away Jackie Robinson jerseys, number
Yep.
42.
Yeah. There you go.
I bet we could keep coming up with them.
I'm currently 42 years old.
Okay, you're not allowed to age ever. So looking at the Call Me by Your Game episodes that you were also on, the co-op series, because you've been on a handful of those, not
Yeah, been on
enough,
a
I'll
couple of
say.
those. Yeah.
Let's see.
And not for a while. I feel like it's been like maybe over a year since I've done one.
It's you, because I know I did not have you on for sequels last year, one of my great regrets, but you were on, you're going to be on the Shovel Knight episode that we do. That'll come out in April for anyone really
Hmm.
looking forward to that. Also, you've been on too many episodes for me to just easily search in through here. I can, so you were on co-op episode 17 about Metroid Dread.
Great. Yes.
You
A
were
fantastic
on
episode, by the way. Listen back to it recently.
such a fun re-listen. One that's
Hmm.
going to come out, I think, next month that you were all, or in 2 months that you were also on, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order
Oh, hell yeah.
co-op
I love
episode
that
20.
game. Yeah.
An incredible game. You were also on co-op episode 22 where we did just a one-on-one to talk about new Super Mario Brothers Wii.
That's right.
This is
I
back.
recall.
This is back when I didn't have a theme for the co-op series. It was just games I was playing.
Right. Well, but
And
that's good.
you know what? It worked out. Now I actually am scheduling in more games for myself to play throughout the year. Wow, you were on 3 this year. Co-op episode 27, Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
You were on a Call Me by Your Game episode 134 where we discussed Rusty's Real Deal Baseball.
Right. Which is just my natural state, by the way, is
Yes.
discussing Rusty's Real Deal Baseball.
As it absolutely should be. Forgive me, listener. I'm scrolling through here to find the other Call Me by Your Game specific episodes because you've been on all the other shows on our network as well. Let's see.
I think the next one after that is probably my top 10, right?
It might be.
I can't
Scrolling
think
past
of
a
what
lot of
else.
VGACS stuff for you.
Yeah.
Okay, episode 198, top 10 favorite games of all time, part 5 with you, Drew, and Mark. And that could be the most recent
I think it is. I think that's the most recent time I've been on the
for
show,
this
except of course
show.
for this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the most recent. Thanks for letting me take a quick detour there. You were talking about MEO and them. I have another question to ask you.
Yeah.
Is there a game that it doesn't even have to be in your backlog, but that you would really like to dive into that you haven't had a chance? This could be an unreleased title or one
Yeah.
that
I get you.
that you have that you just haven't had the chance to.
So you mentioning that I was on the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, like hurts me a little bit because I played the first 25 minutes of Jedi Survivor, loved it, and just was bogged down with other stuff. So like Yeah, I gotta get back to that game. I have to get back because I love Star Wars, and I think the Jedi games are like a great implementation of that in video game form. So that for sure. I keep thinking that I want to play some like I got a hankering to play some Final Fantasy games,
Oh,
and like games that I've not played. Like I'd like to play 12. I've never played 12.
oh, me neither.
Um, uh, and like I didn't play 15, didn't play 16. Obviously I adore 7 remake and rebirth. And so I feel like I've got a modern Final Fantasy shaped hole in my life right now, and I'd like to get into one.
Yes, the Final Fantasy shaped hole in my life is being filled by me playing Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep on the PSP.
That's a great idea.
Uh,
Play some Kingdom Hearts.
and I've never touched this recently. I think I've mentioned it in both of our Discords because I'm like, who does anyone have anything to say about this? Because I'm in love
Right.
with this first game. This Birth by Sleep, by the way, Patrick. Do you know about
Yeah.
this game?
I know about it, yeah, but I mean, I know about all of the Kingdom Hearts
Okay,
games, but then also, you should this should not dissuade you from telling me about it. My eyes may glaze over as you
that's okay.
describe.
This one is as I've been almost Kingdom Hearts pilled, but not quite at this point. I've been looking up. This is consistently at the top of most people's list. Well, this and Kingdom Hearts 2
Hmm.
are at the top, and maybe a couple others. And this does a fun thing where you can choose between one of three protagonists, play through their story, and then you can play the other stories, and you start to see where everyone has been while you are playing as other characters.
See, I do love that.
It's fun. So I
That's a
finished
thing.
one
Yeah, that's a
story and
thing
I've
that
got
for
two to go.
me is like it goes back to Resident Evil 2, right?
Yes.
Where you're like, oh, did you pick up the attaché case or did you leave it for Claire? You know?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's I wish it had like cool mechanics like that. It's mostly just story crossover, but
that's
as
fun
I was
too, though.
pitching to you, the action RPG combat is pretty great for a handheld game from like, I don't know what this was, 2006 or something like that.
Sure.
Um, Lastly, Patrick, before we head to break, is there a game from your recent history or an experience that you would be so bummed out if you don't mention before we head?
Yeah, I mean, I will just use this opportunity to once again sing the praises of The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom, a game that whatever. It's a Zelda game, so like, I don't need to go to bat for it. But I do feel like it gets a little bit maligned. And a part of that is, or I know like a commonly cited reason for it being maligned is the way that the game treats like the menus for creating echoes, in that like you pop up a thing and it's like a single line and you just have to like scroll through and find the thing that you're looking for. There are a couple different ways to sort, by most recently learned, most recently used, cost, type, and then there's like one other method that you can sort by.
Hottest, like
Hottest,
sexiest
yeah, of
echoes.
course, right. Most likely to succeed, most likely to be arrested, and that's the Lionel. The Lionel's most likely to be
Of
arrested.
course.
But there, for whatever reason, that never bothered me because I love the idea of encountering a problem in that game and then opening up a sort of infinite menu of options of like, how do I address this? And sometimes I'm going for the first thing there, the something like, 3 entries in and it's like super quick and easy. And sometimes I'm just like flipping through all of these magic spells, all of these things that I can will into existence to help me get past whatever monster is in my way. And it felt to me like the perfect amount of you're presented with a problem where you're like, oh, how am I going to do this? And then you spend 30 seconds thinking about it, 45 seconds thinking about it, and then you have the solution, just like over and over again. It's like the perfect amount of challenge to a puzzle, right? Like if the puzzle is too challenging and you have to think about it for too long, I kind of want to just bail, right? And I never got there with Echoes of Wisdom. I thought it was a delight. The music's wonderful. It could run a little bit smoother for sure, but what are you going to do? I'm playing games on Switch. That's just life. But yeah, no, I really loved Echoes of Wisdom.
You and me both, pal. I bought it the day it came out, but I almost didn't make time for it until I had a gap I think
Yeah.
in like October or November, and I just ate it up when I actually engaged with it. And it's not,
Right?
it's definitely not for everyone, but yeah, you and I, this is not the first time we've talked about this, but it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Really, really like it.
Wonderful, Patrick. Thank you for giving me just a sample of your recent history with gaming since you first came on. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll finally get into all things Battletoads. So I will see you on the other side. Welcome back to Call Me by Your Game. Connor McCabe still here with my dear guest, Patrick Ehlers. Hello, Patrick.
Patrick Ehlers still here. Hello with Connor McCabe.
There we go, a perfect reversal. And finally, we're going to get into the main event today where we discuss Patrick's history with the original Battletoads. Before we dive into all of the goodness that he's going to share with us, we're going to do a little table setting about this game and share, just give like a brief overview of what it is in case any listeners are unfamiliar. Patrick, I already told you that I'm going to basically puke up 2 paragraphs about
Yeah,
this,
run it down.
but you add on later if you'd like to.
What if I want to add on in the middle
You
or just
cut
shout
right
over
in.
you?
You cut right in, pal. You do your
Great,
thing.
great, great.
But without further ado, I'll kick us off. Battletoads is a beat-em-up platform video game developed by Rare.
Misleading. I would argue it is
No.
not a platform beat 'em up. I understand that is the common like description of the game.
Yes.
But I'm planting my flag here. That is not the genre of this game.
Would you call it more of an action platformer?
I don't even know that I would say platformer is its one of its primary. I would say
Racing
that
game.
this is kind of it's you're not wrong. It is a twitch reflex action game that is effectively 12 different arcade games stitched together.
Perfect.
Some of them are action beat 'em ups. Some of them.
Let me redo that then. Battletoads is a Twitch reflex action game made up of essentially 12 different arcade games
Thank you.
developed by Rareware as we know them, and published by Trade West for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The first installment of Battletoads in the Battletoads series. This was released in North America and Japan in 1991 and in Europe in 1993. So after the Super Nintendo was already out.
Mm-hmm.
Ports without Rare's involvement were released on the Mega Drive and Game Gear in 1993 and on the Amiga and Amiga CD32 in 1994, despite the former having been developed in 1992. A port developed by Rare for the Game Boy was released in 1993 as Battletoads in Ragnarok's World, not a God of War or Thor
Nope. It is not.
crossover.
And also, it's kind of a different game, but go on.
There we go. This is why we gave that permission, isn't it? Because stuff's coming up. In the game, 3 space humanoid warrior toads form a group known as the Battletoads. 2 of these, Rash and Zitz, embark on a mission to defeat the evil Dark Queen on her planet and rescue their kidnapped friends, Pimple, the 3rd member of the Battletoads, and Princess Angelica.
So imagine, if you will, being introduced to a trio of Ninja Turtles-like frogs that exist in outer space and being like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then one of them gets kidnapped at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, you're just not
It's
participating.
wild. Yeah.
Yes. Well, there is a sort of redundancy of like the 2 Pimple sort of names. Pimple and Zitz are kind of
Yes.
the same thing. So
They're very similar.
I'm
yes.
glad they didn't. Those weren't like Rash wasn't taken. Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
But the thing is though, like in subsequent games, and you can even see it in like the graphics of the NES game, Pimple is the one with the different body type. He's like the big bruiser.
Yes.
Right. So like, and then the other 2 are like kind of skinnier guys, right? So I always kind of viewed the trio as the same as the trio in the original Final Fight, right? That Pimple is Hagar and Rash and Zitz are Cody and Guy, right? That like Cody and Guy pretty much the same in the original final fight. And Hagar is like the big bruiser, right? He's the mayor. He's got broad shoulders and doesn't wear a shirt, you know. And like that's Pimple's vibe. And for whatever reason, they're like, no, the two playable characters in this first game are going to be like basically photocopies of each other.
Yes, and the big strong one is getting kidnapped.
Whatever.
There we go. The game was developed in response to a topic that we've discussed today in Mirage Studios' Teenage Mutant. Can I talk? Teenage. Is it Kelly Nugent Ninja Turtles? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. It received mostly positive reviews upon its release, Battletoads that is, with critics praising the graphics and variations of gameplay, which Patrick touched on earlier. However, many critics were divided over the game's difficulty, which is high.
Notoriously so, yes.
It won 7 awards from the 1991 Nintendo Power Awards and has since been renowned as one of the most difficult video games ever created. It was later included in Rare's 2015 Xbox One retrospective compilation, Rare Replay. And I believe this was also followed up. Was it followed up by Super Battletoads on the SNES?
So that's called Battletoads and Battle Maniacs.
Okay.
And there is a Genesis version as well. That's like a totally different game than the Super NES one. And then there is a Battletoads and Double Dragon game that I believe was Genesis and Super NES, and those are basically the same game. And they're both pretty good. And then of course there's the new Battletoads from just a couple of years ago on Xbox.
Yes. Patrick.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you'd like to add or clarify about our little overview of this game?
No, I think that's that's good. I think anything else I want to add is also a little bit like in the personal realm, but you know, is context regardless.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, speaking of which, let's get into your personal realm as we do. In what way, how did this game come into your life?
Yeah, so we've evoked them multiple times, but obviously the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are very important to me. They were very important to me as a child. Also, you mentioned Kelly Nugent when you were stumbling over
yes.
the word Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before.
Because I said Mugent.
Hey, it happens, man. One of my favorite like moments like that, I was on a podcast with Kelly, and she was trying to say tiny child. But it kept coming out shiny tiled, and like she couldn't get past it. It was amazing. I think it was an episode of Teen Creeps, but
amazing.
So yeah, I was big into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Had been watching the TV show. I wouldn't discover the comic until I was like a teenager. But I was born in 1982. The Turtles first. Issue number 1 of Mirage Turtles came out in 1984, and the TV show, the Fred Wolf like animated series, started in 87. So like this was hitting me at like exactly the right time for me to be obsessed with mutants and ninjas and turtles. So I was very much into that property and those video games, right? And by this time, I think all 3 of the NES Ninja Turtle games would have been out. The one that's like that side scroller, top down, like notoriously difficult game from Konami, and then the 2 beat 'em ups, one of which being the NES port of the arcade game, and the other one being the Manhattan Project, I think is just what it's called, which was like another take at our arcade game formula, but made for the NES.
Yes.
Great game, by the way.
2 of which I owned as a kid. A lot of people did, but being a little, just slightly younger than you, and but didn't know an SNES existed, big Turtles kid myself.
Yes.
Of course, I owned the original and the arcade game, and I loved both of them despite having very different experiences with each.
Right. Yes. And I totally agree that I love all of those games, even though that first game is a fucking nightmare. Like it is so hard. I accomplished so many things as a kid on video games that I'm like, I can't believe that I did that. Right. Like I can't believe that as a 7-year-old, I beat Super Mario Brothers,
Yeah.
or as like an 8-year-old, I beat Super Mario Brothers 3. I beat Battletoads when I was a kid. It's a notoriously difficult game that you just like have to memorize, but I did it. And I never beat the original Ninja Turtles. Like it took until the Cowabunga collection came out a couple years ago that I could really save scum and like get through to the end of
I
that game.
still need to exercise my childhood demons and do
You
that.
have to, Connor. You
And
have
I own
to.
that and have played a number of games on it, but I digress. This is about you.
But so okay, most of I was watching the Turtles cartoon, but mostly I was playing the video games. I was collecting the action figures, and I was playing the tabletop role-playing game Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness, which is in the Palladium system of role-playing games.
Awesome.
Are you familiar with TMNT and Other Strangeness?
I'm almost positive I'm learning about it here.
It rules. It's so cool. It is a like the actual book for it is so thin, but like it had the instructions for how to create all these different mutant characters, right? So like you would start with an animal, you would roll to see like how mutated it was, then you could spend points in different ways to like, you're like, oh, I want to make sure that like I'm bipedal or that I've got like human hands or, whatever. And they're like, oh, I have to make sure that I spend the points to get like the skunk spray if I'm a skunk, and all this kind of stuff. And it was just like a book that fascinated me as a kid because my mind would just like spin out with all these different mutants and like of my own creation. Fun fact that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, used that book and that character creation to make more characters for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show.
Wow,
So
used it as a tool.
they used it as a tool for like genuine character generation for a TV show. Bebop and Rocksteady come out of them making like rolling characters.
Oh my.
Isn't that awesome?
That is so cool.
So there's a kickstarted reprinting of the and Other Strangeness book that's coming out at some point this year, and I'm very excited about that. But so all of which is to say that the majority of my experience with the Ninja Turtles was interactive, right? Video games, action figures, and a role-playing game. So I was always looking for that fix wherever I could get it. And in the early 90s, there were so many swings at like Turtles-like things, right? There was the Cowboys of Moo Mesa, Street Sharks, all this crap, right? It's like genuinely bad stuff.
Well, there's some
and then
like cats that were like that, or like
yeah,
furry guys.
right?
What am I thinking of?
Well, so there are they Top Cats? That like they're like brothers who like work in a junkyard and they
Could
like
be.
they fly jets.
I'll just stick to remembering Street Sharks because I do remember those.
Great. But Battletoads was another one of these, right? I know that like Rare had created these characters with the thought that they were going to like, really build out the franchise with like an animated series and action figures and all the same kind of stuff. But they just didn't really catch on, partially because the whole endeavor is being led by this video game, which is too hard for kids to play. But regardless, as a kid in 1991, this game comes out and I see it and I'm like, that's it. I'm there. They remind me of Turtles. And then because the first level does play very much like a side-scrolling beat 'em up, like the Turtles arcade game, I was immediely hooked, right?
Cool.
That I was just like, this is, I'm going to commit, to learning how to play this game. And played it sometimes with friends, sometimes played it by myself, and got to the end of the game, learned all the warps and all that kind of stuff, and then like put it away for a long time. Because Connor, there's a part 2 to my relationship to Battletoads.
I love it.
And it acts as a prequel to my relationship with Dead Rising.
Oh my gosh, we are filling gaps here on the show.
We are filling gaps on the show.
It.
So if you recall, most of the narrative around my experience with Dead Rising was that I was a hall director at the school that I just graduated from. and people would like come into my apartment and we would play Dead Rising, and people would be like, you know, like shouting, be like, no, 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 you got to go back to the shoe store over here, and like, no, you can go through the vents and get there. It was a
You're
very
not
like
like the other
collaborative.
hall directors. You're cool. That sort of
I
thing.
was that well that was true. I was cool. And my residents liked me. But when I was a freshman at the same school, Lawrence University, Appleton, Wisconsin, I was friends with that hall director. His name, a man by the name of Al Reiser, and Al, was a dork like me, and we bonded really early. He was like one of my first friends there, and like you could argue that like he was paid to be nice to everyone in the building, but like whatever, we were friends. And one of the RAs had his NES like there at school, and we just kept it behind the front desk. And so like sometimes when he was on duty and he would be sitting at the desk, he would be playing games on this NES. It was one of those like top loader ones.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
That's sort of
I've
like
never
second
seen one of those
generation
in real life.
Oh, it's awesome. It's a great piece of tech. I wish I had one now. This was Ed Johnson, who is a teacher at Occidental College right now.
Oh my goodness.
So shout out to Ed
in
Johnson.
our neighborhood.
He teaches like music history. Is a super smart guy. So he had this NES. And so, one of the games he had was Battletoads. And I was like, oh, I love that game. I'm pretty good at it, or I was pretty good at it. And he was like, oh, yeah, and we're hanging out at the desk. And so I was playing a little bit with Ed. And Al came out and was like, oh, yeah, no one can beat this. Like, this game is impossible. And I was like, I beat it as a kid. And he was like, yeah, bullshit. And I was like, no, I did. But of course, like all those skills had like atrophied, and I forgot how to do most of it. And so Al and I decided together that we were going to practice this game and learn how to beat it 2-player.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And this game in 2-player, there's a specific wrinkle that I'll get to in a second.
Yes.
But there is the game is friendly fire on all the time, right? So if you're punching another toad, if you're punching the other toad, that hurts them, and you can accidentally kill your partner super easily. And then also there are so many points in this game where you're on like a vehicle of some kind, either like a rocket or a bike or, whatever, a surfboard. And there are these like one-hit kill kind of things. And if one of you dies, you both go back to the last checkpoint. So it means that when you're doing these like, tightly memorized, like, dodging things that are coming at you, you have to do it perfectly in sync because otherwise one of you will die and it effectively kills you both.
Maybe you just said this. Can you also bump into each other and die?
You can't bump into each other, but like if I'm near you and I hit the attack button, like that'll hurt you.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then, of course, there is a glitch in level 11 where if you reach it with 2 players, the second player, like, literally can't progress. So that's as far as we ever made it. It was to level 11 together.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Kind of one of the things that the game is also famous for that I may have learned from listening to you on your podcast or some other show throughout the years. But yeah, that just making the 2-player part impossible to beat. They probably patched that out for the rare replay version.
That is a great question. I have no idea.
Yeah, I said they probably do, as if I have any idea. I do not. That's absolutely incredible. You've already given me so much to like dive in and to talk about. I think I'll ask you about a few different things here while we're here, Patrick.
Yeah.
First of which is, are there elements of the game, gameplay-wise, that you look back on and you actually still like? Or was it a pain the entire time? Because I've never played this game.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that the game really has going for it is novelty, right? there no two levels in this game have like the same MO, right? Like
Okay.
you're approaching them and you have like different like gameplay priorities in each of them. There's like a little bit of overlap. Sometimes like the beginnings of levels are like similar to just like these sort of like standard side-scrolling beat 'em up kind of
Okay.
thing. But it moves on from that really fast. But like, yeah, there are definitely parts of the game that I do genuinely really like doing. And some of it comes down to just like the game's insistence on your mastery of whatever's happening.
Sure.
Um, there's no feeling really like doing the speeder bike level and not dying, right?
Yeah.
Like, and for those who've never played it, it's a strange environment. It looks like you're inside a brain, right? And you're on this little like hovering motorbike, and these like walls come at you, right? And the walls are positioned either high, medium, or low, or they can also be like just a short wall that spans the whole length of the thing. And so you have to either just be, in the spot opposite where it is, or jump over it. And they like blink for a second and then come at you. And so it's really like you have to react very quickly or memorize the layout and like act accordingly. And the music gets faster and faster, and it's like another of the sections that has like an one hit kill, instant fail back to the last checkpoint, and is as far as most people get in
Yes.
Battletoads.
Hmm.
This is level 3 of 12. And like, well, I understand why most people would be like, that's like the nadir of all video gaming. When you know how to do it, and when you've learned how to do it, it's the best fucking feeling in the world. And the game has maybe 10 other moments or sections just as difficult as that, and just as satisfying to like master.
I I can imagine that thing that you have to go through, that circumstance, I guess is maybe the way I'll characterize it, of having to memorize an incredibly fast and difficult gameplay sequence is something that I'm sure people could do today, but was maybe just slightly more built for the era that it was in, of, sort of
Yeah.
leaving the NES's prime into the Super Nintendo, when so memorization, I feel like, was more of a commonplace in the like difficult action games that we used to play.
Yeah, well, and that's totally true. And was like part of the whole like make the game so difficult so people can't beat it in a weekend and then return the rental,
Totally.
right? But one of the ways that I always feel like Battletoads distinguishes itself is that first of all, there are warp zones aplenty, right? So within the first 3 levels, I think there are 3 different warp zones to get you like later in the game.
Oh,
So
wow.
if you want to practice later levels, you can get there pretty quick, right?
Nice.
But on top of that, earning extra lives in the game, you earn extra lives by reaching like certain point thresholds, but those come kind of slowly. But you can also, if you are juggling an enemy and getting like multiple consecutive hits, you'll reach a point where, just like in Super Mario Brothers, where if you're turtle tapping, where you earn extra lives every time you like hit them again. And the way to do this is in the second level, which is a pit that you're rappelling down, right? And you can get like a bird's beak that they use as a sword. And if you like position it right, that you have multiple different chances to just like juggle these like raven enemies, and just like earn upwards of like 30 extra lives. So that would be like the way to do it, is like get to level 2, juggle the birds for as long as you can, and then warp to whatever level is giving you trouble and just work it out. Just lose those lives memorizing everything that's about to happen.
Wow, you found a way to be able to train at the game despite its brutal difficulty.
This is what I'm saying though, is that like
Yes,
that's part of the game. Like they give you the tools to have that sort of like infinite retry, not infinite, but like multiple retries to learn something. Like that's like other difficult games of the era, like Ninja Gaiden, or like Super Mario Brothers, like the original Super Mario Brothers and Lost Levels, like those games where it's just like, I don't know, you've got like 3 lives and like good fucking luck. But like Battletoads, it was easy to get those extra lives and experiment and really learn how to play the game.
I'm sure that must have, it's probably hard to remember, but felt like a breakthrough for you
Yeah.
when you,
Yeah.
especially when you were first experiencing the game.
Hmm. Yes.
When you think back to either your time playing with, by yourself growing up or with friends, or I believe it was Ed you played with in college,
Yeah, so it was Ed Johnson's machine, but Al Reiser was
but you
the
and Al played together. Okay.
me and Al were the two-player team. Yeah.
Do you remember like a specific moment that ever happened playing this game, whether it be between the two of you, alone, or anything that stands out in your brain?
Yeah. So one of these levels, and hold on, I've got it over here. Which one it's what it's called? It's called Terra Tubes. I think it's the eighth level. That is. The whole game is difficult, so I don't know why I would say like this one's one of the more difficult ones. But it's straight up side scrolling, so without the sort of like depth of field of like a Final Fight or Turtles arcade game. And you're inside like sewer pipes that you have to just like traverse all the way to the end. And there are a bunch of different like things in here that you will never see again in the game, and you've never seen to this point. One of them is there are parts where you're being chased by giant gears, like Indiana Jones style, right? Like they're barreling down on you. And it doesn't require pixel perfect execution, but like damn near close. And then there are swimming sections that you also have to get through as fast as you can. And there's no swimming in the game otherwise, right? So it's excruciatingly difficult. I remember like working through this maze of pipes with we were playing in Al's apartment, and I had the controller, and so we were like working our way through the gears chasing you section. There's something like 5 different like discrete sections of it that you have to get through, and it's all one hit kill stuff, right? And I had gotten through the 5th one for the first time, right? And was just like, oh my God, like we did it, right?
Yeah.
Or I did it. Now we know like exactly what you need to do, and like taking notes on like how quickly you need to like, turn around at various points. And then like you land in an area where there's like just a little bit of water, and like a rubber ducky kind of like floats up near you. And I was like, oh, get a load of this guy. And Al, thinking that maybe I had lost my mind from being chased by gears, just yelled, "Don't trust it!" So he wanted me so badly not to trust this little rubber ducky.
Yes.
He was right, of course. It was an enemy. But Al just like totally like there was no irony to it. He was yelling, "Don't trust it!"
Yes.
To me.
Not like filtering any of the way he's saying it or
Yes.
being like, maybe I should deliver it this way. He just instinctually was like trying to save a friend, really.
Yeah, we were so tense from the moment that I had just broken through that he saw something that he thought I didn't perceive to be a threat and was like, "No, Patrick, no."
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's absolutely incredible. Do you remember, did it get you, or were you able to keep
No, I got it.
progressing?
I got it. I got through that duck that time, but
Phew.
yeah, I didn't trust it. I
Were you,
heeded the warning.
thankfully, were you two aware of the two-player glitch at that time?
I don't remember. Probably not. Probably not when we started it. But I feel like by the time we reached it, we knew that it was going to happen,
Sure.
or that we knew that it was like an issue, but maybe didn't totally trust it. This
Mhm.
would have been what 2002 into 2003. So like the internet's not new, but it's less common that there would be like regular walkthroughs and videos and stuff like that. Like YouTube didn't exist yet. Yeah, like we were still playing this even though it was 12 years after the game launched. We were still
Sure.
playing it in an era that is so different for video games than it is right now.
Yes, it makes me wonder like how that journey ended for you two. Was it? I wonder if it was just you being like, well, this is where the road just ends.
Yeah, well, then that's what it was, right? Is that we would play 2 player up to the beginning of level 11, and then the first player or the second player would just die and lose however many lives they had, and then whoever was playing player number 1 had to do level 11 and 12 by themselves.
Just nuts. We're now You said Ed is the music teacher out here, and
Yeah.
Al, has this ever come up since? Do you keep in touch? Has the subject been broached?
Yeah, Al and I don't stay in touch too much. Every now and then we'll like catch up on like Facebook or something.
Sure.
But yeah, and it's always like I think he reached out when Rare Replay came out. I think we exchanged messages when the new Battletoads came out.
Cute.
Just because like this is a thing that has bonded us, I think forever. So
Yes. I
yeah.
mean, hearing you talk about that, I think just about any, not just about, there are plenty of gaming experiences that we all have. I have those that are close to my heart of people that I associate with these
Hmm.
games. And whether or not we were put through the ringer like you all were, but it is not, there is no surprise to me that like there have been a couple of touch points to reach out because
Yeah.
of the game.
Yeah. What's interesting is like you mentioning like going through the ringer. Like I never, I guess maybe as a kid I did, but when revisiting it in college, I did not view this game as like a punishment or like some sort of like skill-based get good penance. It was just a challenge, right? Like it
Okay,
was just
yeah.
something that like we set out to do. And I don't know if that was partially because like I was going to school for music, and was like just doing music at that point. So most of my life was spent in a practice room at that point, like learning to get good at the
Oh,
bass.
interesting. Yeah.
And so then I would just like shift that mentality to like nighttime activities, which would be get good at Battletoads.
You
Um,
trained in music so you could be a Battletoad.
yeah, yeah. I wonder which I'm better at now,
Yeah. That
music or
is,
Battletoads.
well, I guess there's only one way to find out. Patrick, go get your base. Um, that is wonderful. You've already painted such a beautiful picture of me and like brought me back to the time and place. And this is belated. I normally do this at the beginning of the sort of like memories and contextual part. Can you do a little scene painting for me of like you described it slightly, but where you and Al would have been playing this game, what that room was like?
Sure. So there are two rooms primarily where this happened, and both of which are in Ormsby Hall at Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin, where I lived for my freshman year. And Ormsby is like the old building on campus. It's one of the original buildings from when Milwaukee Downer College merged with Lawrence University.
Hmm.
It and Main Hall were like the two buildings that like lasted all the way through. Lawrence technically predates the state of Wisconsin. Like it was founded before Wisconsin was.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so like this is an old drafty building with so much character you could die, Connor. um, and so the one place and where I started playing and where Ed was playing his NES was at the front desk. So like you would walk into the building and there may be it's a three-story building with like a basement, and each floor probably had 35 rooms maybe.
Hmm.
So like not a huge by dorm standards, right? um, but so you would walk in and on the right there was like behind one of those like bankers windows was like a front desk where people
Yes.
could pick up their packages and get laundry tokens and that kind of stuff. And so that was like a little tiny room that had a small TV VCR combo that people could like rent
Oh,
out from the desk. And it usually people had their own TVs by that point or computers to watch stuff on. Although again, it predates YouTube, so like also predates Hulu. So there wasn't too much of that happening. But so anyway, we had this TV VCR combo down there, and it was big enough for maybe two people to be back there. And so like we would play Battletoads in that little space, frequently being interrupted by people who wanted their packages or whatever. So that was playing at the front desk, and then otherwise it was in Al's apartment, which was right next to the front desk.
okay.
So again, just like right as you walked into the building, and so this was a one bedroom apartment in a dorm being occupied by a 23-year-old man who had just graduated from Lawrence and was doing the same thing that I would do a couple years later. And so like It was always kind of messy. Like Al kept a messy apartment. Um, he had the Hogwarts like castle Lego set um,
Nice.
that was set up, and a couple other like Star Wars Legos that were like that filled the area. It was
Mm.
very much like a dork bachelor pad, and we would get like pizza or like Indian food or whatever, and just like play Battletoads, from like 11 o'clock at night till 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. That was usually the setting. And, because this would have been like not the like very beginning of the school year, but probably started around like November or something, that it was always like super cold outside and that there were people's like winter coats just like piled up by the door.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for doing and letting me take you a little out of order to do that. I love the description is so vivid. Last couple questions for you,
Yeah.
Patrick. The
Yeah.
first of which I teed up for you earlier. Is there anything about this game or your experience playing it by yourself or with Al or anyone else that you haven't shared today that you want to be sure to talk about?
Connor, are you familiar with the pause music from Battletoads?
No.
I don't know if we have the technology to play any music here.
Here, probably not, but I can
Okay.
play it for myself on this end.
Yeah,
And
play it
that's
for
all I
yourself.
care about.
Play it for yourself on that end. Listeners, go check out the pause music for
I'll put
Battletoads.
like a link to a YouTube video with it.
It is the simplest loop in the world. It's maybe like 4 seconds long, and it is obnoxious as hell. But Connor, are you listening right now?
I'm waiting for a Ryan Reynolds Mint Mobile ad to end. Now
Hey
it's
man,
on.
I've got Mint Mobile.
Hey, there we go. Sorry to besmirch Mr. Reynolds. Okay, now
Right,
I think I have heard this before. Is this the whole
right.
thing?
That's the whole thing. Yeah, it's two instruments, right? And it just goes like um and it's awful, but it like try getting it out of your head though.
That can't be possible. It's there forever now.
It's there forever. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I love that that was the final thing you shared, unless you had something else.
No, I think that's probably it. I didn't really get to like dig into the like level variety,
Yes.
other than just to say that like they're all different. But I described a couple, right, with like the rocket bikes, descending down like the pit. There's an elevator shaft level where you have to like climb to the top. The Terra tubes, which I already mentioned. There's a like ice level, which is like all ice levels, slippery, and then like a super complex maze that
Of
you need
course.
to that you need to navigate. Well, also there are these like barriers that can only be broken by ice blocks that are sliding around or snowmen throwing snowballs.
Okay.
And of course those snowballs will hurt you, so too will the sliding ice block if it like hits you. And so it's all about like using the enemies in the environment to like progress through it. There's a surfing level which is rad as hell. There's a level where you're riding on a rocket, which is just as hard as the hover bike level,
Uh-huh.
but it's like the ninth level or something like that, so no one ever gets there. Yeah, there's just so much to this game, and if they could do, I always thought this would be like the perfect format for a modern Battletoads. It's not what they did with the new one, but that each of the levels is like its own game, but it always feels like it would be the last level in a game based on that mechanic. And I wish they would just show us the earlier levels using that same mechanic so that you could like build up to it, right?
Oh, sure.
and
Yes.
then and then if you wanted to have like one big campaign that was all of the final levels, one right after another, to replicate the experience of playing the original Battletoads, like that's always what I thought they should do, and of course they didn't. But yeah, I just love it so much.
A dang shame.
Dang
Well,
shame.
to close out, this discussion, I would love if you could just put a bow on the place that Battletoads. Jeez, you can tell it's been a
Battletoads.
long
It's been a
day.
long day, Connor. It's okay.
Um, Patrick, wrap up what place Battletoads holds in your life for me.
Shiny tiled. Battletoads. It,
Mugens.
Battletoads is a game that I know. It's one where I feel like and have felt for a long time like sort of alone in my fandom of it. Not dissimilar to like Star Tropics, right?
Sure.
Where it's a game that I love deeply, and I just have a super hard time finding other people to agree with me. The difference being that I have this relationship with Al Reiser, where the two of us know this to be a game that we love, and that like forged a relationship between the two of us. So yeah, it's an unlikely friend maker, I think.
I love it. Unlikely friend maker. That's a headline right there.
Yeah, there we go.
Patrick, thank you so much for not just bringing on this game, but hanging out and chatting with me for a second time about a special one from your life. This was a blast.
Yeah, Connor, have you ever played Battletoads?
I don't think I've ever turned it on.
Okay.
I just know about it by reputation, pal.
Yep.
Well, to close things out, I of course have our two usual post-show segments to walk you through. The first of which is the Fact Me by Your Game, where Patrick, I'm going to share a couple of fun facts about this game,
I love it.
And
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see if you know them already or not. The first of which comes from a video by a YouTuber named Scott Newmeyer titled "Did You Know This?" in all caps about Battletoads. I'll put a link in the show notes. And I have this titled "Surprise, No More Flies." Do you know where this is headed?
No, I don't. I mean, there is like the fly eating mechanic where flies like come onto the screen and you press the attack button to catch them with your tongue and refill one little sliver of life.
Yes, I believe the primary or the only way to regenerate health in this game, or I guess recoup some health.
Right.
So you know?
Sort of. So there are also sorry. There are also there's a certain kind of enemy that instead of attacking you, attacks your health bar. Like they're like little 8-bit looking toad things that go over to the health bar, grab a piece of your health meter, and then like fly through the screen. You have an opportunity to hit them and then take your health back.
Okay, so you can get that health back.
Right. Yes.
What a funny like meta element of the game.
It's so weird, yeah. And like maybe the only meta element that there is.
That's so great. Well, anyway, did you know?
Tell me about the flies.
Here we go. That after stage 8, there is no way to regain health for the remainder of the game. That from stages 9 to 12, there are no flies that you will encounter.
Yeah, makes sense.
There we go.
Here's the thing, though.
Yes.
By level 8, most of what you're encountering is one-hit kills. So
it doesn't matter.
Refilling your life doesn't really help. Yeah.
So there's a rhyme and reason to it. That makes sense. The second fact I have comes from a video from the YouTube channel Rewind Arcade, and the video is titled "The History of Battletoads." I have this fact titled "What's a Name Anyway?" Did you know that Kevin Bayliss, the original designer of the Battletoad characters, had a different original name for the Toad group?
Yes.
And would you like to tell us what it is? Because I could just tell you.
Yeah, just tell me. It's like Amphiba something, right?
You're right there. It's amphibians with a Z instead of an S at the end.
Awful.
Awful. Also, it's even more generic. It's not specific to what they are. Maybe they were... It doesn't get into it in the video, but maybe he was like, they hadn't settled on the toads themselves yet.
Right, sure. We're going to have one toad, one frog, and a fucking gecko or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Both of those fun facts.
Salamander? Geckos are lizards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like a salamander. No. I want to name an amphibian, Connor.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'll put a link to both of those videos in the show notes where I've sourced these fun facts today. And the final...
I do like that Zitz, the toad named Zitz, spelled Z-I-T-Z. So he maintains the amphibians with a Z, like part of that DNA carried over to the name of that character. We didn't lose it.
Thankfully.
It would be a crime if we lost it.
It really would. That'll wrap up the Fact Me by Your Game segment. I'll lead us into the final one of the episode, the game recommendations. Patrick, you will know that this is my one forced tie-in to the movie Call Me By Your Name, where I'm going to treat Battletoads like your passionate summer fling in Italy, a romance that you had that burned so bright it must be extinguished. But
yeah, winter in Wisconsin, but go on.
You get it. Yes. In order to help you get over this heartbreak, I have 3 potential recommendations for you, potential new flings that all have a little something in common with this game.
Okay.
And the only question I have for you is, are you ready to get back out there?
Connor, I'm ready to love again. I'm ready to get my heart broken again.
That warms my little heart. I hope you get heartbroken again. Uh, I've got three for you today. The first of which, Patrick, is if you're just a lover of amphibians, but you want them with even more annoying personality. I'll
Ooh,
recommend an obvious one, and that is Gex.
sure.
And there's like three Gex games. Take your freaking pick from this gecko.
What's Gex's deal? Is he like a secret agent?
He is like, at least in the first one, and maybe the rest of them, sort of like a James Bond ripoff.
Right, right, right.
I forget the actor that voices him, but
Yeah, it's someone like Jay Moore, but maybe isn't Jay Moore.
it's definitely. I think it is an actual British person who does it.
Oh, okay, all
I
right.
could be wrong, but it's not Jay Moore.
Okay.
Either way, Jay Moore, isn't that Jeannie Buss's husband or boyfriend, the owner of the Lakers? It might
I don't
be.
know.
Anyway, Gex, take your pick. Any of the Gex games, the classic 3D platformer. If
Dana Gould. It's Dana Gould, not a British guy.
not a British guy, but a British guy in my mind.
Sure.
If you love beat 'em ups, but you want even more licensing, Patrick,
Oh.
I'll recommend a game to you, Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Have you played the first game? I bet you've played the one on Switch.
Well, don't make that bet, Connor, because I have not played the one on Switch. I've not played the original either.
I, for some reason, inherited a copy of the 360 version. It's I
Cool.
could see it being really fun. No one played it on the beat 'em ups night that we did like last year or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
No one would touch it with me, but I want to play it, and that's your second recommendation.
Well, the reason no one did is that you just kept walking around the party going, "Will someone touch this with me?
Yeah,
Will someone touch this with me?" And we
and
didn't know what
everyone
you were
without
talking about.
yeah, no one wanted to find out the context of that question for good reason. And lastly, as we discussed, Battletoads in two-player mode is impossible to beat with both players finishing the game. And if you happen to be a masochist that just wants another unbeatable game, this time by a single player,
Hmm.
I'll recommend to you the Windows 92 version of Chips Challenge. Have you played Chips Challenge, Patrick?
No, what's Chips Challenge?
Chips Challenge is
Chips
a tile.
Challenge.
It's like a
Shiny
tile.
tiled.
It's a tile-based game where you play as a little boy who I think is also named Chip. You're trying to find computer chips.
Okay, good.
And for some reason, in the Windows 92 version, I've got the article up here. Thank you, Ars Technica, for this. I'll go ahead and read this off. And the fourth version of the Microsoft Entertainment Pack for Windows is a well-remembered for this tile-based puzzle game, itself a port of the 1989 Atari Lynx original Chips Challenge. But that port challenged changed a single tile in level 88, removing a wall and changing a former dead end into an open corner, but that in turn causes the level's walker enemies to fly out of that corner in a straight line, blocking the actual path out of the level. So
Fantastic.
so anyway, your recommendations for this episode are Gex, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and Chips Challenge, specifically on Windows 92. That'll do it.
And is Jay Moore? Does he do the voice of Chip?
Jay Moore was, the voice acting was cut, but he was tabbed to be that voice actor.
Great.
That'll do it for the game recommendations, and will bring us to the end of the podcast. So before we go, thanks again for doing this, Patrick. Great to have you on. It's so fun to have you on after building a real friendship together over the last few years. I can't wait to get some tacos soon, buddy.
Oh, yeah. The tacos are the best. I'm
really
so
are.
glad we do that. And thank you, Connor, for having me back on and letting me talk for so long about Battletoads. Has there been a podcast where someone has talked about Battletoads for this long?
This has to be a record-setting
This
episode,
is a record. It's got to be.
and I refuse to hear otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
On your way out, buddy, we plugged some stuff earlier. Why don't we replug? Tell us where you want the listeners to find you.
Right. Nintendo Cartridge Society. Check out that podcast. Check out the Patreon. And of course, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles source book. I am working on a project that has not actually been announced yet, that is in the realm of the Ninja Turtles, and I've been using the source book a lot to guide me. So I'm just spending a bunch of time with this thing that I wrote, and I'm like, oh yeah, this thing is good, and I love it.
It's fan fiction where they're actually lovers, not brothers, right?
So they call that turtle cest in the on the boards, and it is frowned upon.
Of that checks out. I interrupted your plug.
No, that's it. Check out the Teenage Mutant. I'm so glad though that my Turtle Source book plug was interrupted with discussions of Turtle Cest. So,
Me too.
no, just check out the source book. You can anywhere you buy books. It's a handsome 400-page tome all about the Ninja Turtles.
Wonderful. Well, a link to your podcast and the source book are going in the show notes where they belong. And without further ado, I'll close this out with some plugs of my own. The cover art for Call Me By Your Game is done by Glenn J. You can find him and his other great work on his Instagram, which is in a link in the show notes as well. The producer, editor, and the original music is done by a certain individual named Jeremy Schmidt. If you want to thank him for the great work he puts into this podcast, check out his show.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Daddy, is what I was going to say. Thank you, Jeremy. Check out his podcast, Video Games and Comedy Show. It's a part of this network. It's one of the two pillars, along with this, of Super NPC Radio, and it's a fun, even funnier show than this one. It's a roundtable style group episode where we do different topics, different formats. We talk about whatever the heck we want, and it's comedy focused. There's a link in the show notes too. You can follow me on social media on Blue Sky, Instagram, and my Twitch channel if you want to watch me play video games as well. That's twitch.tv/consiscool69. You can follow the show on Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube as well. Especially if you didn't watch the video version of this, even if you're not a big YouTube person, do me a favor. We're getting closer to 100 subscribers, which isn't a huge amount, but that is a milestone. So if you're not a subscriber, check out our YouTube channel. And subscribe to us. And then the show, lastly, is the network, Super NPC Radio. You can also find us all over social media. But again, if you're still listening and you like the conversations I have with people about video games, one big way you can support us is by sharing the show, listening to our free and Super NPC Games Club feed, but also by checking us out on Patreon. Again, we've got a free tier. We also have tiers that start at $1 and up that have different perks if you support us. Those perks being mostly bonus video game podcast episodes, including a monthly version of this show where I sit down with a group of people to discuss a game in an overview style format, the co-op series, which Patrick and I in April are going to be releasing an episode all about Hollow Knight.
Shovel Knight.
We've covered Hollow Knight on the network. We're doing Shovel Knight, and in the month of March, we're doing an episode on Untitled Goose Game. You can also check those out on YouTube for the video version, which is free. But yeah, check us out there. It's a great way you can support us. Find a sustainable tier for you, or just subscribe at the free tier so that you're in that ecosystem and you get our pods in one place. But that's it. And that'll do it for episode 240 of Call Me By Your Game. We will see you on the next one.